Who's ready to talk about games with PD? Me, the parrot, in PDSAs, a brand new talk show where we talk to all sorts of celebrities. Today, I end my feud with a certain crocodile, alligator, whatever he's called. He's a reptile. And we're going to talk about the latest game called Mario Strikers Battle League, which looks amazing, by the way. But Dimitri, he just likes to hate on Nintendo so much. Anyways, I'm not going to get angry.
Wow,
let's introduce Dimitri. Excuse me?
Who crapped in your cornflakes, buddy?
Okay, rule number 1 on my show, we don't curse, okay?
I'm guessing it was yourself.
Anyways, what do you think about Mario Strikers Battle League? Because me personally, I'm not going to interrupt you at all, but me personally, I feel like Mario Strikers Battle League is the proper step in the right direction. And let me just say, most of the sports games on the Switch have been phenomenal. They've been the best of the series. I just love the constant little drip feeds of content throughout the months that keep me engaged. It doesn't at all keep me unengaged and make me forget that I have the game at all. So I don't get what the problem is with you assuming that Battle League is going to do the same thing, because if it does, it doesn't really matter.
Well, I would just say I don't like buying a game that's unfinished, but I think that's a little bit too much for you to comprehend. But the best way I can explain it is that when I buy a game that's full price, I expect a full price game. Don't you?
Well, let's not be irrational here, right? We are getting a full game. We have little avatars that we can doll up and stuff. We go to this YMCA type area where we can go into the...
Hold on, I just got a notification that somebody was unauthorized getting Switch games for quote-unquote free dollars, and it's starting to smell like the 7 Seas, and the name attached to it is Petey Peterson. Do you know anything about that?
That could be anybody. You know, Petey's a pretty common name, and Peterson, come on, that's a pretty common last name. It could be anybody.
Why is there a guy who looks exactly like you in the profile?
And that wraps up our episode on PDSA.
Oh, you know I got you!
You are now watching Dimitri.
Oh boy. Petey, how I never want to deal with you again. But it seems that Petey will never run out of material because the latest topic of the week. People are worried about Mario Strikers Battle League launching unfinished. Unfortunately, I saw this coming from a mile away. But the thing is, whenever I talked to T&D about the issue, he kind of downplayed it a bit, and I could see why beforehand, because Mario Tennis Aces was the game that I was very livid about, so much so to the point where T&D was laughing hysterically when I said, it's not just freaking tennis.
Yeah, well, now it's becoming kind of an issue, because we're seeing a pattern, not just with that game, but a whole slew of games. I think everybody knows what we're probably going to be discussing today, but I think we have to address this because it's just, I don't want to spoil the rest of the discussion, but let's just say I haven't been enthused with the company as of late, and in turn it hasn't made me excited for anything.
Yeah, I totally get how you feel, because we've talked about this quite a few times, and I gotta say, I no longer get excited for Nintendo Directs. It's very rare that I'll be excited for a game that they release. I will say that there have been great games on the Switch, even this year. Pokemon Legends Arceus I heard is really good. I've only played a little bit of it. I guess I'm just fatigued with the Pokemon series. They really gotta put the brakes down with that series. Like, we had yearly releases, and now we're having multiple yearly releases, and wow. They really gotta slow down the pace there. You're trying to tell me we can't have a new Donkey Kong for almost a decade, but Pokemon is just this never-ending McDonald's fast food thing? by far my favorite game that is released on the Switch this year, and also one of my favorite Switch games, or even Nintendo games ever, is Kirby and the Forgotten Land. I'm very excited to cover that game. I won't say too much, but when I cover the game, it's going to be the complete reverse of Demich's Fury. So I'm really looking forward to that. But unfortunately, despite all the good games that have released, there has been a major problem, especially with the multiplayer-centric Switch games, where Nintendo releases these games without much content at all, and they add in these free updates. They're doing a really good job disguising them as free updates, when in reality they're just patching up the game with stuff that should have been there day one. And naive fans fall for it, but now I'm starting to see more fans get agitated by this practice.
Yeah, I think we're not talking about Mario Strikers yet, but I do think it started with Switch Sports. I know that there was a huge controversy with that. Demich, I know that you had to deal with a lot of let's be honest, a lot of trolls, and a lot of people who were, understandably very excited for the game and weren't seeing the bigger picture here.
Look, it's not every day I'm excited for shovelware, so more power to them. I remember when I was so hyped to get Fred the game, only to find out it wasn't actually real. Only problem is Switch Sports is actually real. Oh boy.
Yeah, but here's the thing. I do not care about Switch Sports in the slightest. I don't care about Wii Sports. Don't care about Wii Sports Club. I'm sorry, Wii Sports fans. It's just not my jam. So whenever you talk to me about Switch Sports, I was just kind of like, okay,
I think you told me one time, can we talk about anything else besides freaking Switch Sports? But you did say that Switch Sports really sparked the discussion, and I think in combination with Mario Strikers Battle League, it definitely has, but this has been an issue for the longest time with Switch games. I would say that it really started to become pervasive in 2018. We, of course, had Kirby Star Allies, which was very light in content, though I can definitely see why people thought it was finished. Just very underwhelming. I didn't feel like the game was unfinished my initial playthrough. It just was very underwhelming in the sense of every way. Mario Tennis Aces, forget about it. There is no way, there's not a chance that game was finished. If you don't have something as basic as a stage select screen, a game is by no means finished. And it's continued since then. Some other notable examples are Animal Crossing New Horizons, which, yes, it does have more content than something like Mario Tennis Aces or Mario Golf Super Rush, but it lacked half the content New Leaf did. A 3DS game. And then we go into 2021, Mario Golf Super Rush, one of Camelot's other masterpieces of garbage. And now, we just got Nintendo Switch Sports, and like you said, you're not too fond about the Wii Sports series, and it really isn't impactful to you. But it is for me. I love the Wii Sports series. I wanted to see how the series could evolve using brand new HD hardware. And it turns out the series didn't evolve. In fact, it devolved. Switch Sports is hands down one of the most disappointing games Nintendo has ever put out. I'm not going to give any mercy to that game in the review, but my goodness. And then we have Mario Strikers Battle League, which apparently only has a roster of 10 characters. And this is getting a lot of fans worried that the game will use the finish it later thing.
I mean, considering we've only seen how many characters so far? 10? And Daisy isn't even in the introduction cutscene, which did release today, by the way, in Japan only. That's very concerning. I mean, look, Daisy, if you're not crazy about her character, that's fine, but she's been kind of a big deal in most of the Mario Sports games, especially Mario Strikers. The fact that she's not a highlight here worries me more, just because it makes me feel like the free update thing is coming, and just, I don't know. I think Mario Strikers looks really cool, like the new one. I think the animations look great. I think the graphics are a huge improvement from what we saw in February. But I just, besides like nitpicky things like losing a little bit of the edge, I'm more worried about the longevity of this game.
I'm gonna say my stance on Daisy. I have played Mario Kart 7, and I have played Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. I know what it's like having a game where Daisy is playable, but not my favorite character, the man, the myth, the legend himself, Waluigi. And as a Waluigi fan, and even though there's sort of a rivalry between Daisy and Waluigi fans, I am willing to be on your side in this case, or really if this ever applies to any other game, because how can you have a Mario spin-off without Daisy as a playable character? Now, when I think of the characters who are part of the series and pretty much need to be in the spin-offs, I would say that the roster in Mario Kart DS, minus Dry Bones and Rob the Robot, I mean, I love Rob the Robot and Dry Bones, Rob the Robot especially, but you gotta have at least Mario, Luigi, Peach, Yoshi, Toad, Wario, Waluigi, Bowser, Donkey Kong, and Daisy, of course. You gotta have those mainstays, maybe even Toadette, but my goodness. And Mario Strikers is a series that also had teammates, and for a soccer game, you need to have a larger roster. The game would really benefit from that, but here's what I'm guessing will happen. So ever since Nintendo bought out Next Level Games 100%, they're a first-party developer now, I'm guessing that they were put on a sort of tight deadline to get Strikers out by the summer, and what probably happened is Next Level Games was in a situation like, oh my gosh, we don't have much time to complete this game. What do we do? Well, the characters are definitely important, but we want to make sure the gameplay and the content are there, and if the roster is lacking, it's disappointing, but hey, at least we can provide a solid core game. I'm hoping that's what the situation is, but is that the ideal situation? I would say no. The games just should be finished at launch. If they have ideas for extra content, by all means, they should go for it. And I'll definitely get into the straw that broke the camel's back situation, because RGT85 also brought that up. But with these games specifically, like the multiplayer ones, Nintendo has done a terrible job with DLC.
Yeah, regarding Mario Strikers, I actually think the situation is more so that this is just the standard with Nintendo's multiplayer games. I think I just think for the longest time it's been like this, you know?
Well, it's been like this for a while.
Yeah, and here's the thing. I don't think Next Level Games has much of an option to do this because, like, I think you and I were talking about Luigi's Mansion 3 and how, like, that doesn't have any of the Nintendo stink that we're seeing right now. But you also have to consider that Luigi's Mansion 3 isn't exactly multiplayer-centric. And I think Nintendo sees an opportunity to use that model for a series that people are very excited for. But you know what's funny? It hasn't really been working. I think I was the first one to say to you, I think Switch Sports might bomb. I don't know if it has bombed, but I just haven't seen a lot of talk around that game besides, like, people complaining.
I mean, not to toot my own horn or anything, but I did a poll asking how many got the game, and 80% said no. So I'm wondering if the negative publicity surrounding it has caused the game not to get sales, and I can tell you that it will probably be at Five Below within a few months from now.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like a Five Below game, let's be honest.
I mean,
something that would be on Xbox. But, look, it's just sad to me because, here's the thing. Nintendo, we know them to be innovators, you know, with their first-party IPs. Like, Breath of the Wild 2, it'll probably innovate in the genre in some major way. The next 3D Mario, probably the same thing. But they are falling behind in things that Xbox and PlayStation have figured out, that mobile gaming has figured out, which is online gaming. Okay? And my worry is that they're getting away with this so much that other publishers are going to go around and say, maybe we can do that too. You know? It's just, it's not just bad for Nintendo, it's bad for the industry at large, because you want your games to be complete, you know? And I don't think it's the developers' intentions to release an unfinished game. Trust me when I say developers don't want to release a bad game. You know, it's always the company behind it that has ulterior motives.
Unless it's Penn and Teller with Desert Bus.
Yeah. But I just feel like it sucks because I think, like you said before, I think me even more so, I have not been excited for anything Nintendo in the longest. Just, maybe it's just the games they've been releasing. Like, I'm not into like the JRPG scene, like I'm sorry, like whenever I see a Nintendo Direct and I see like a bunch of JRPGs announced, I'm just like, I really don't care about this. I'm not a huge Pokemon guy,
Is that when you start
you
talking
know.
about your shoe collection?
Not quite yet. No, no, no. But it's just sad that a company that I used to be like really excited for, like I'm not really excited for anymore. And this has, I mean, look, I'm not interested in the games that they're releasing right now, but there's like, what disappoints me more is that we're getting spin-off games to hold us over for the next big games, and they've all been disappointed. I remember I told you I was excited for Mario Golf Super Rush because you recently got me into the Mario Golf series, and I loved it. And it sucked that the game was pretty much unfinished when it was released, and I'm probably not going to get it ever.
I would
Um,
just stick to
it
World
looks
Tour.
it looks bad when ND Cube is doing a better job than you.
Well, for ND Cube, it took like what, 2012 Mario Party 9? It took them almost a decade to get things right, and then when they finally did, it's like, okay, we know we can't make a good Mario Party. Let's just remake the old ones. But yeah, I totally agree with you there because honestly, there haven't been many Nintendo games that were exciting for me. Of course, there was stuff like Kirby and the Forgotten Land, but I wouldn't say that. Okay, for Kirby and the Forgotten Land, I intentionally avoided watching trailers because Nintendo reveals so much about the games in the trailers, and I'm so happy that I did because the game, going into it mostly blind, it was not just a game, it was an experience, but it has become such a huge problem where I can't be excited for many of Nintendo's games because I'm worried that they're going to be the same fix it later, unfinished, multiplayer centered games. Like you said, this has been a problem for a very long time. It did start with Splatoon in 2015, and whether or not Splatoon has had a direct influence, I just want to say Splatoon is the worst thing to ever happen to Nintendo. At the time, it was a good idea to have a new IP that was truly a fresh take on what Nintendo was doing while also incorporating the magic Nintendo was known for. And Splatoon is great, but not every game should be Splatoon. Mario Tennis Aces, that in no way should be a games as a service game. Mario Golf,
Hmm.
same thing. The
You
worst example by far is Nintendo Switch Sports. Where'd I even begin with that one?
Well, you bring up a good point. Do you think Nintendo are trying to recreate the magic that they had with Splatoon?
The reason why Splatoon was so successful wasn't because it used a free update model. It wasn't because the game was structured like a games as a service thing. It succeeded because the gameplay was fun, it was different than
Hmm.
anything else Nintendo had put out before. It's really their only game that is in the shooting genre, and it's great. People love Splatoon because the gameplay is great, the characters are fun, the characters are great. Splatoon succeeded because it's a really good game, and it's fresh, it's new, it's innovative, but it did not
Hmm.
succeed because of the games as a service model. And the reason why I say it's the worst thing that's happened to Nintendo is because they've seemingly got this idea that it worked for Splatoon, it'll work for Mario Golf. It doesn't. And like you said, there are games that use free DLC properly. The best example that comes to me is Super Mario Maker 2. That was one of the very few Switch games to avoid the finish it later curse. And that game launched
Hmm.
with an ample amount of content. I will say the world builder was a game changer, but it truly felt like
Yeah.
additional content because the base game had a ton of content. You got a story mode, you had all kinds of new tools to work with. Super Mario Maker
Hmm.
2, 100% launch complete. New Pokemon Snap is another game that launched complete. It did get one free update, I'm not sure if it has since then. Super Mario Odyssey also got some additional costumes. But I think the best way to look at it is look at the games that get paid DLC versus the ones that get these free updates. Most of the time, the games that get paid DLC are the ones that are completed, and the DLC is just truly bonus content. Like if you didn't get the DLC for Smash Ultimate, you still got a complete game there. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe might be a port of a Wii U game, but no denying that's also complete. But then we get into something like Switch Sports, and what they're doing with that game is they're trying to make it an esport. They structured the whole game around the online. All the unlockables are online. Okay, this is where I'm gonna rant, because Wii Sports is a game that was successful not only because of its novel concept, but because anyone and everyone can understand it. Whether or not someone was young, old, doesn't matter what their age was, doesn't matter their gameplay experience prior, everybody can enjoy Wii Sports. That's what made it cool. Are you trying to tell me
Right.
to return to the Wii Sports series and make it an online-centric game? My grandma doesn't even know what button changes the input on the TV. What makes you think that my grandma will know how to unlock stuff online? You know? And that's where
Yeah.
Switch Sports really fails. I could make this entire discussion a Switch Sports rant, and that's definitely coming. It's going to be an entire review covering the game. Like I said, no mercy, but do you think that Mario Strikers Battle League will be the final straw? Because for me personally, I would say that February Direct was really the final straw for me as a Nintendo fan. Because they were doing stuff like this, and at first, okay, Mario Tennis, it's just a tennis game. Okay, Kirby's mediocre. Hey, at least Forgotten Land is amazing. And then you just see so many more examples of the scummy stuff they've been doing, especially since 2018. I mean, let's look at what's going on. They release games unfinished. There's apparently talks about them mistreating their employees too. I'm not sure how much of it is true, but if it is, it really explains a lot, because if that's the case, I'm sure developer morale is at an all-time low. And at that rate, I sympathize with the developers. If Nintendo is actually mistreating them and crunching them, it's definitely shady what's going on with Nintendo now. But I'm starting to wonder, when do you think the moment where fans will start leaving will be? Because, like I said, the February Direct was probably that for me, where they announced Switch Sports and then they killed all hopes of Mario Kart 9. But even thinking about that, I don't even want Mario Kart 9 anymore, because I'm pretty sure if they made Mario Kart 9, it would be another half-assed, free update, BS types of things. Yeah. Mario Kart Tour, when it initially launched, that's a good example of how I think Mario Kart 9 would be.
Yeah, not that. That's nothing. I don't think that's what we want, especially with the gacha elements. But here's the thing: people have been clamoring for a Mario Strikers game for years. Okay, this is a big deal. Okay, because next to this and Punch Out, this is like one of the next level games, like highly revered series that they've made.
And of course, Luigi's Mansion.
Well, yeah, but they're good with that. Here's the thing: if this misses the mark, and I'm not even talking about the games as a service thing. I'm talking about when the game releases. Okay, if the game is lacking in areas that the previous games had, such as, let's say, a roster, or let's say, content, right? And it seems like there's quite a bit of content in terms of customization. However, if you're not into customization, and that's the basis of most of your content, you might have a lot of people who are into that. But my big worry is that people are going to be underwhelmed by the game in terms of the content it's released with. It's hard for me to say if people are going to think this is the straw that breaks the camel's back, because I feel like people will defend the free updates saying, okay, well, now it's good, or now it has more content. And I feel like this is just a never-ending cycle, because people keep thinking this.
To be honest with you, I'm starting to find a hard time finding new lines for PD, because the shills are seemingly defending this practice less and less. I think Nintendo Switch Sports was one of the it's the worst example of this. And I think if Mario Strikers is very underwhelming at launch, it doesn't matter. I think that's when you'll start to see a lot of Nintendo fans
If
pack their
it's
bags and leave.
Here's my thing. If it's as bare bones, and this is nothing against the first Mario Strikers, it's great, but this was the first game during the GameCube era. If it doesn't have more things to do than the first game, I consider that kind of a L, because here's the thing. I see people online saying, well, as long as it has enough content like Mario Striker, the first one did, it's fine.
That's a good point to bring up.
Why are you digging at the bottom of the barrel? And look, this isn't a dig on Mario Strikers, but sequels are supposed to do things either differently or add upon things that were already there.
I agree.
Do you think I want to play a sequel that has less content than the predecessor? Let's use the Sega All-Stars Racing games, right? So when Team Sonic Racing got announced, they took away all the Sega characters, they took away the transformation vehicles, and they took out almost all the courses that had to do with Sega characters. Now, the game at its core is still a Sega racing game. So at its core, it works. But as a sequel, is it underwhelming? Massively. And the online doesn't even work. I'm worried that this is Nintendo's Team Sonic Racing.
You want to know what that makes me want to do?
I don't know what.
It just makes me want to play some Sonic R.
And look, it's just the only reason I say that is because I'm already seeing I'm not a huge Mario Strikers fan. I'm sorry. I like it. I'm not that obsessed with it, but I'm already seeing people saying,
"Oh, we don't need you to get obsessed with the series."
The art style is like not as chaotic or energetic as it was before. It's a little softened.
I'd agree with that.
Some of the locations look a little sterilized in the sense of a little bit more Mario-y, which I don't think was the original appeal of the other Mario Strikers games.
Well, I would say that it is because it's completely different than the other Mario games. It's edgy. It's more mature. It's cool.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like it feels like it's leaning too much on the main series.
Yeah, I feel that way too.
Staples, and I think the reason I say Team Sonic Racing is because that game sterilized everything that was cool about the previous entries, and I'm worried this one's going to do the same thing.
I would say that Team Sonic Racing, that one is even to a greater degree, but yeah, I agree with you there.
Yeah, but it's just it just makes me sad because like Nintendo just keeps pushing me further and further away from them as a company. Like I'm just not excited for their products anymore. They seem like more and more of a scummy company, Yeah,
I agree.
And I feel bad because I love these developers, but I'm not going to buy games that are not finished, and I'm not going to buy games that seem like they're lesser than when they could have been more.
And that's definitely a good point to bring up.
Yeah, and I'm not going to be... Look, it's fine to be a fan of a series, but it's also fine to want change, and it's also fine to want more from something if you don't like it, and it's okay if you disagree with that, but you can't just shun people out because they're not satisfied with something.
And with that being said, I would say that 2 points that you brought up, one of them is if it's at least on par with the first Strikers, it's a step in the right direction. That thing is used for Switch Sports all the time. They say, oh, the Wii Sports, the original one, didn't have Woohoo Island and it only had 5 sports. Okay, that was the original. They improved it completely with Wii Sports Resort. Sequels are meant to improve, and just because something did something back then, that doesn't mean you should repeat it. In fact, I would say that doing the same mistake twice is worse. Like Mario Party 9, for example, they tried a new idea, didn't work. It happens sometimes. I understand why they did it because all the Mario Party games prior were very similar, but then when they did it again with 10, I'm just like, what are you thinking? And I don't know who could have ever recommended that game to me, not mentioning any names, but About that,
Mm,
I did notice one thing about these games specifically and the gear, and this is a pretty horrifying thought, but do you think that Nintendo is working on a microtransaction system? Like they're gonna streamline with their games? It'll be something like Nintoken, where it's a specific microtransaction service for their games. Here's how I would imagine it. So they'll reveal something like Nintoken system, exchange your currency for our currency. So they'll make it seem like a cute little thing, like
yeah,
exchanging
I.
foreign currency for, the currency you're going to use. And they're going to make it
Mm,
seem like it's a good thing, kind of like how they do with the patches being disguised as free updates. Do you think that
mhm.
Nintendo is eventually going to incorporate microtransactions? Because I have no doubt in my mind it's eventually going to
I'm.
happen. But as to
Yeah.
whether or not the fans will leave when that happens, I think that by then you'll see many of the major Nintendo fans leave. But I think if Mario Strikers is bad, even if it doesn't have microtransactions, that's going to be the final straw. I still stand by that completely.
Let's. So, as far as we know, the game uses in-game currency to buy cosmetics and other content. However, it's a little naive to deny that gaming is heading towards more of a microtransactional landscape, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Well, that's one thing Nintendo has
and
never done outside of mobile games. And of course, a few of their free to start games, but that's a little bit different.
right, but do I think Nintendo's going to eventually do it? Yes. It's not a matter of when. Well, it's not a matter of how, it's a matter of when, really. Because honestly, if they introduce microtransactions to Mario Strikers, I think that might be the straw that breaks the camel's back because I think everybody's just sick of them, you know? Not to make it about Sonic again, but the latest remaster had a similar issue where there was like a digital deluxe version and it was literally for content that was supposed to be in the base game, but they made it seem like you're getting extra content by
Ooh,
paying more. You know,
that's not good.
it's scummy.
I remember
It's
Super
not good.
Sonic
And
being DLC.
yeah, yeah. And they changed. And you know what? Talking about that, the fans made such a stink about it that they eventually made that free. So it. This is my point for people speaking out against these things. If you don't speak out against these things, and I say this as a Sonic fan because I know, like, you know, I know how these things work, at least in the Sonic fan base. But like, if you make a loud enough stink about something you don't like, people will listen. People in high places will listen. Okay,
Absolutely.
and it's okay. And it's okay to want better things from video games. You know. And to put it back to Mario Strikers and about Nintendo, um, I think Nintendo has to be very careful uh, with the microtransactional stuff. You know,
I
um,
don't think they'll do it for Strikers, but it is something that I wanted to bring up.
yeah, I don't think they will either. But all I'm saying is that if they ever did do it for Strikers, there would be a huge backlash against it. And I think my main worry isn't for Strikers. I think my worry is for the next Mario Kart. I'm worried the next Mario Kart will have
Well,
microtransactions.
all you gotta do is, like I said, just look at how Tor launched, and that'll give you a good idea of the nightmare situation for Mario Kart. And that's a Mario Kart that didn't even launch with multiplayer, but to summarize
Mhm.
everything, Mario Strikers definitely does look worrisome. I think that I'm pretty sure it will get free updates. There's no doubt in my mind that it will definitely get free updates. Whether or not the game will launch bare bones like tennis or golf, I would say it's a probably 80-20 chance. 80% it will happen, 20% it won't. I'd love to be proven wrong. I could say it's
Yeah, me
probably going to
too.
be in a higher tier than tennis or golf, simply because Strikers is more fun to play. And I do trust next level games more than Camelot, so it seems like there's a little more hope there, but as Nintendo fans, this is stuff we got to talk about. And the reason I wanted to do this discussion is because many people have been catching on to this issue. It's been a huge topic with Mario Strikers, Nintendo Switch Sports, and like you said, I'm not excited for Nintendo much either anymore. I got an Xbox Series X. If you were to tell us about a decade ago that we'd go from being Nintendo fans to being Xbox fans and loving the Series X, and Xbox, wow, have they really stepped up their game. They seriously went from thinking about not having the Xbox One have the ability to play used games to, okay, how about full backwards compatibility and Game Pass? Now that's a console I like. Well, anyways, thanks for watching. I am T&D.
And I'm Demeech.
And as a wise man once said, a rushed game is forever bad, but a delayed game can eventually be good. Unless it's Star Fox Zero.